I'm going to show you how you use and mount the Raynox 250 on the Olympus 40-150mm 2.8 Pro lens. This lens is usually used for wildlife and just to get some distance when you're shooting with micro four thirds. But it works really good as a macro lens. You can get pretty close to your subject without any modifications to it. But if you add the 1.4 teleconverter to it, it gives you even better macro capabilities with the lens. It's probably one of the best all-round lenses you can purchase for micro four thirds, but it really works great for macro, especially with insects that tend to move a lot if you get anywhere close to them. So a lot of butterflies, that type of thing, are really sketchy when you get in the vicinity of them. But with this lens, you can actually keep a little bit of distance, but get really close for some macro shots. If you add the Raynox 250 to it, it increases your magnification quite a bit and makes a world of difference on getting really close to your subject and getting the magnification up to around 1.5 or so with it, which you get in super close with that. Sometimes you have to crop a bit, but it works really well. But with this lens, it has a much larger diameter filter than the Raynox can handle. So you usually have to buy step down rings to mount this on it. So with this lens, I use 2 step down rings for it most of the time. So you need to step it down from the 72mm thread that's on the lens down to 62 at least to get the Raynox to stay on securely. You don't have to worry about it falling off. Easiest way to do it is with 2 step down rings. They do make 72 to 62mm single step down ring, but they're quite expensive. They usually sometimes can be $25, where you can buy a full set of step down rings on it in the neighborhood of $12 to $15. So with that, just basically mount the 2 step down rings on the front of your lens. Get it threaded on there. Just mount your Raynox on front. It seals up good and tight, and it's centered well, and there's no real light leak around it, and it gets the lens close to the front element of this camera lens on it. Some people like to take away the quick release on it and just mount the lens itself directly to the camera, and that works good with some of the smaller lenses. But when you have to step down to mount this on here, you have to get all the way down to a 43mm to get it on there. And you can do this, but it gets the Raynox a long way away from the front element. It works all right, but it increases the vignette quite a bit by starting the lens that far away, and you also lose some of the clarity of it. It really cuts down on the sharpness a bit with it. So I really avoid that with it and just use the 2 step down rings going down to the 62, and that seems to work better for me. And I just always make sure that this Raynox is securely mounted on the front of the thing. Now, what helps when you're shooting that far away, you can't always use a complete cover over your insect to sort of shelter it from the sun, direct sun. So you're better off using this lens in a more shaded area, like in the forest or under the trees or leaves, that sort of thing. It works better. But what I do use with it quite a bit is a lens filter. I mean a lens hood. If you use a short lens hood, it works really well. This one's a 49mm on the front element. If you get a lens hood that's short, it doesn't get that much closer to the insect, but it does block some of the light from your flash coming down, so you don't get any reflections in the lens itself on it. And it does protect it from any sunlight creeping through, that type of thing that will cause shadows and discoloration on your lens when you're taking photos of it. And with this lens, with the reach on it, it's harder to use with any type of cover. So if you're using a flash, I tend to use something like this. I use this as to diffuse the light better from the flash, and try to just mainly shoot in shadowy places with it. If you shoot in direct sunlight, it tends to make the insect look a little harsh, or whatever else you're shooting with it. So I try to use flash and shoot somewhere with this lens in the neighborhood of f10 if possible. So, and it works really well. I usually shoot with the Panasonic G9 and use the 60mm a lot, but I found for these quick moving insects that I like this quite a bit better. You can use a lens by itself, but if you can afford to get the teleconverter, you usually have to stop down the lens anyway, so you're rarely shooting at something like 2.8. You tend to shoot at a higher f-stop to get more depth of field with it. And this brings the lens from a 2.8 to a f4 minimum aperture with it, but you do get a little more reach and more distance on it. But the magnification also goes up by adding the teleconverter, so it magnifies it a little bit and lets you get away from the insect or whatever you're shooting a little better. But going with the 2 step down rings is my preferred method. Just mount this on here and it works pretty well. I'm going to add a few photos in there to see the difference between using the Raynox and not using the Raynox, how it it makes it a little better magnification for it. So I'll add some photos here to the end, but please like and subscribe, and I'll try to post some videos with it also here in the future. Thanks for watching.